Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jim with Reverb.com. I'm here at the Riviera, and I'm here with Andy and Mark from the band Ride. Thanks so much for talking with us, dudes. How does it feel to be back on the road together? I mean,
it's been amazing. It's been a year. It's been a long minute. It's been great. This year's been one of the great years for me, for sure. Yeah, it's been excellent.
And is it heavily weighted kind of to the old stuff just because of the anniversary? And
yeah, kind of more so than it has been. We started off the reunion with quite a broad over the first few years. I mean, we didn't go into the later stuff too much, but we're definitely featuring Nowhere songs on one now, which is the debut album.
Yeah. I kind of want to get into this gear. I mean, you guys have some really killer stuff on stage. Andy, let's start with you. I mean, it's like a Trini Lopez. What's the story behind that guitar? When did you get it?
It's a guitar that I picked up, well, the first one I picked up in like 04 when I was recording with Oasis in Los Angeles. And I didn't have much chance to play it because I was a bass player back in those days, but Noel used to have it as a sort of backup guitar for touring for I think that whole world tour, and then I pulled it out for BDI and it's been with me ever since. It's like my go-to guitar because it's always in tune and always sounds good, you know.
And then there are a couple Ricks, 12-string Rick. I saw a Jazzmaster over there too.
Yeah, the two Rickies are 12 strings that I bought in 1989 or so when we just got signed. So we got our first deal. Up to that point, I was playing really bad gear, just really cheap guitars, rubbish amps, and suddenly got some money, and we're like Gretsch, Tennessee in 1969, two 12-string Rickenbackers, and God knows what else we ended up with. But yeah, those are the same two.
And Mark, I saw. There's this blue Jaguar. What's the story behind that?
The first Jaguar I had was like a kind of Japanese thing that I bought with my student grant. I didn't eat. Not a lot, but just a few £100 for the term, and of course I went and bought.
Mark's mum used to send him food, and we all used to eat it.
Yeah, so I bought a Fender Jag.
Remember the Rissoles?
Yeah, the Rissoles, yeah, they're legendary. So yeah, because I basically bought a guitar with my student grant money, which was the Fender Jag, which I used quite a lot on Nowhere. But of course, I was aware that there's a lot better Jags around than that one. So I happened, by pure chance, when I stayed in LA, to be staying in Tarzana. Someone then pointed out, you're 2 blocks away from Norman's guitar shop. I knew I just wanted to treat myself for a vintage, great sounding Jag. And I saw the Lake Placid Blue Jag, which is a 1965. And then I kind of went into heavy negotiations with Norman to try and get a deal on it, and which meant me pulling out dollars every day until I could go back and had enough, money to get it a few days later. So yeah, I basically bought that especially for these reunion dates. I also looked around and then found the 12-string version of the 330 6-string that I always used to play, which is what I'm also using now to do all the sort of 12-string Ricky picking stuff.
There's a Gibson acoustic, right?
That's it, yeah, and is your Hummingbird, yeah?
Yeah.
Beautiful guitars.
Bought that in Cleveland.
And let's talk about the amps. You're running Marshall, you're running a Vox, this classic British sound.
And divided by 13 as well.
Oh, cool.
So I've combined divided by 13, which is more of a Vox sort of copy thing, with Voxes, which is a great combination.
In the Ride days, I used to use a high watt head and a Marshall cab, and now I use a small Marshall head and a Marshall cab.
Yeah, and what is that? It's a JMP, like 20 watts?
It's a 20 watt.
I'm sure shoegaze is just kind of a word to you guys and doesn't really mean a whole lot, but what do you think are the most integral elements of that rig?
Well, talking about that sound, shoegaze sound, you're really, in terms of guitar effects, you're maybe more talking about the Valentines and the Cocteaus and the Mary Chain than Ride. Ride had some songs that had big floaty guitars on, like you could just probably discuss your pedals on Dreams Burn Down.
Yeah, it's much more about delays creating space in tracks than what we think just it's all about reverb, because reverb's kind of messy. So it's much more fun, delays and depth.
But just as a go-to in terms of reverb, the Eventide Space pedal has a setting called Black Hole, which is the go-to for those shoegaze sounds.
Yeah. I've found the Big Sky Strymon, but that is really good too. I really like in quite a few of the Strymon pedals because they also seem road tough as well.
The Deco is one of my favorite sounds.
Deco's great. I use that for a milder on the tape saturation thing as a sort of overdrive instead of overdrive now. Yeah. And then I've got the Rat for the more sort of general distortion.
And that's like totally classic. I saw you had a super fuzz on your board too.
Two fuzzes. I have that fuzz and an octa fuzz as well.
Obviously there's the modulation. A lot of that happens within the delay, within the whammy bar, whatever it is. And then there's this kind of what I think is like a super compressed.
Yeah, compression is what Kevin Shields maintains is the only effect he uses. I don't know how
that's
that
not
can be
true.
true.
You've seen his board, yeah.
But yeah, the compression's really important. I have a compressor on all the time. The red Ibanez CP9, sorry, yeah. That's my always-on compressor. And then for a volume, I also use this Origin Cali 76, which is basically like having Yuri 1176 in your guitar rig.
Yeah.
But for me, I use it as just a huge warm volume boost.
Years ago now. Those early records, I mean, are you able to achieve some of those same sounds, or are you not even really thinking about that?
I mean, I really referenced the sounds that we were using, like the GP16, and then I just bought so many pedals. I mean, I've got a great guitar shop in Oxford, which they kindly let me try out lots of pedals. So I went through a lot to kind of end up where I was, but to make sure that I wasn't just replicating the sound we had, but the sound was bigger and fuller. But of course, then with all the pedals, it was just a mess, and so we had to then. There's a great guy in England we used called Mike Hill who built us the boards properly with all the transformers in them and the separate switching boards, so all the pedals remain on, everything's in loop, so if one should go down, the sound still goes. You can't be sort of headlining Primavera and hold on a minute, I need to reconnect this because I've got a crackly lead or whatever.
Right. But one of our first shows outside of the UK was like Amsterdam. But there was that gig where we turned up and we did Soundcheck, and then the fuse blew and all our pedals went down. Yeah. And we had to do a gig without our pedals. I was like, we may as well go home. We may as well get back on the ferry, go back to England. This is going to be the shittest gig ever. Imagine the ride gig with no pedals, and no one really even noticed. And I'm sure we just cranked all the amps up to full, but it was just like...
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
I don't know how they got me on stage. I was absolutely fuming, going, there's no way I'm going on stage with no pedals.
And then we got stoned, and it was all sounding great.
So, I mean, what is next for you guys? Are you guys making a record?
We're just going to get to December and see where we're at, really. I mean, this year it's been really special, and personally, I've just really, we've done this before, and we know it's all going on 1 minute, and it's the crash, and then it's all over. So, personally, I'm just lapping up every second of all these shows. It's great, and it does bring you back to that thing, the music. I guess the music's always had that life that's always been going on, and the music's. But it's always been out there, and it's just nice to reconnect with that because that's had an energy and a life force all of its own, really. Together, we love music. I mean, that's been the real thing that's pulled us together. And that's the one sort of thing that I could thread through it all. It's like a lot of people very passionate about music, and that for me is certainly not gone away. And if anything, I feel it even more so now because outside of that, life kicks you around or whatever. But it's always been like salvation to me, and it's something very special and powerful.
Guys, thanks so much for taking the time with us, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.